Anyway, let's take a couple of minutes and do our opening meditation, which is initially focusing on our breath. And then in a little bit, we'll move into setting the motivation. But for now, if you could just place your mind at the tip of your nostril and just try to bring it into focusing on your breath. And if it wanders, just bring it back gently. And now taking a moment to set your intention for our time together tonight. And I like to say this is the time to imagine that we actually have the ability to be confident that we have the ability to achieve all the realizations of the path. And that through doing so, we would be able to help every living being. And thinking how wonderful that would be, aligning our intention with those highest goals. And then when you're ready, you can, open your eyes and come back into the virtual space. And so I'd like to start. So last week, I thought it would be really helpful to talk a little bit about teachers, what the guru is, what their purpose is, how to find one, why you want to find one. And I feel like that's not just I feel like that is presented as a really critical aspect of the path. And I think, the lovely thing about this kind of format is it's informal enough that hopefully we can have some discussion. And because it is such an important topic, and I think there can be confusion, there can be questions. I was hoping that maybe somebody would have some questions, or I don't know, something in particular that they would like to discuss. So I would really like to kind of start there, and then we can kind of see where the rest of the evening goes. But anybody, because I just can't fathom that there's no questions, no issues, no hypothetical problems.
Regarding teachers, or you want to hold that off for now?
No, the whole thing. Yeah, any of those topics. Yeah.
All right. So I was told one time, we talked about me last week a little bit in teachers, and I was told by one of the teachers here. He says, "Well, maybe you just have created the karma not to have a teacher in this lifetime." And he didn't say. I mean, he didn't say that I didn't take it as a mean. I don't know. I don't think he meant it in any kind of mean way or bad way. I mean, karma is just karma, right? It's matter of fact, right? And that's exactly how I took it. And as I thought about it, I thought, well, in my own life, I've never really had that one person or those two people that I look up to. There's a lot of people I think, oh, I like that about this person. Yeah. But once I'm there, then that's really it. It's not like, oh, I idolize this person, and that's true whether it's sports or education or academics or anything else. And so, although I did spend a lot more time thinking about it this week, and I don't know that I have the karma to not have a teacher. I can tell you I have not really looked for a teacher that hard. And the couple times I asked, I got turned down, and I said, "Oh, that must mean I don't need to have a teacher." and instead of pushing forward, and so I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of from that background where you watch one, you do one, and then you teach one. And if you could watch one and you could do one, you could teach one, and you're ready to teach. But certainly, when my experience in Buddhism is that's not. There are people out there who I think, by and large, are charlatans, or out there just to make money, who will take you on. But the people that I respect, right? So now the people that I actually look up to in that area, they all say, "No, I'm not qualified to do this." And it's like, well, you're more qualified than I am. Yeah. So where do you go?
So, we talked a little bit about it last week, and I think this is a great kind of starting point for the conversation. So, hearing you may not have the karma in this life to have a teacher. I mean, that's just a reality. Look around in the world. I would say probably most people don't have what we would put in that category of, root lama or teacher, right? They're not even necessarily investigating the path. So obviously we have to, if we want that. So you also said, you haven't really looked for one for a long time, right? So I think I know I said last week, for anything, if we want a particular result, then we have to go about creating the causes for that, right? So the first step is always wanting one, like seeing the value. And I think, you said a word and it stuck with me, and I'm just going to talk through it because I'm not sure what I want to say, but it raised something in me when you said, you don't idolize people. And I think awesome, because, for the most part, most of us aren't worth being idolized, right? But something about that word in relation to the teacher feels like I want to tease it out, because I don't think guru devotion and having a teacher is at all about idolizing someone, although it has those trappings. It is really a functioning relationship. And I think I talked about that last week as well. So it's not, it's interesting because normally, and you're the other thing you said so much that's worth commenting on. So you also said, learn one and then teach one, right? Do it, like see someone else do it, then you learn it, then you do it and you teach it. And I think that, and I said this again last week, kind of stepping up and just understanding there's a difference between sharing what we know, and being a lama, being someone's like heart teacher, right? So I think when we go and we ask someone, will you be my teacher? I think from anyone who's a practicing Buddhist, that question can just be loaded with an awful lot of heaviness, and I think rightly so, people understanding their own limitations. Because the question is, do I have the ability to take you to enlightenment? Well, the answer in this case for me is absolutely not, not in my current state. But am I capable of developing those qualities? Am I capable? I mean, if we're not, then what are we doing here, right? And maybe that's not the way to put the question, but truly, I would hope that we're here because we do believe that if we practice these things, we can actually have these realizations on the path and we can progress as beings. When I said earlier and every time about setting the motivation, I think so many times we're so trapped in, who I am today. And then that is also like a story. That's a mental construct. I wake up in the morning and I'm not available to be anyone other than Bonnie because I'm like decorating. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I think Lama Yeshe would say, you're decorating yourself, or, just basically piling all these labels and all of these ideas onto something that has no inherent qualities of its own, right? So I'm not available to be anything else because I'm too busy being Bonnie, which is problematic. But I'm not looking for a Lama who is someone to just idolize, right? It's looking around to find someone who appears to have all of these qualities. And that may start out to be, and sometimes it's easier. I know last week you also mentioned how that you said, it would be kind of arrogant to go to His Holiness the Dalai Lama and ask him, will you be my teacher? I will say that anyone that is really qualified or appropriate to be a teacher would see that as like a humbling sort of honor, and they are so motivated by compassion that of course they would want to help you in whatever way they can. Sometimes, I would say I've heard and I believe that there are beings who actually have abilities beyond what we can see. So they may actually know, like, oh, I'm not the one for you. This other teacher is the one for you. In fact, I was just reading recently, and I can't remember who it was, but a story where, somebody was listening to Lama Yeshe and was super inspired by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And then when they had an opportunity to have a meeting with Lama Yeshe, they asked, who is my Lama? Or, will you be my Lama? And Lama Yeshe kind of laughed and said, don't you know, Lama Zopa is your guru. This is your guru. So somebody might have that ability, but putting that aside, to say whether or not you've created the causes, maybe you haven't, but maybe those things haven't ripened yet in this lifetime. And certainly, one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, because I think people struggle and they really want to have that relationship. Some of the things that we can do that are like very practical. And I talked about it before. One is, understanding how would I benefit? What is the reason to have a teacher? Obviously that they provide you with, a model, something to aspire to, right? So, and their behavior should be inspiring, and they should know much more than you. They should be motivated by love, all of these different qualities that the teacher should have. And because we're not psychic, we don't necessarily know that they have them. But I also talked last week about understanding that have to be careful because things can be so easily misunderstood, but understanding that not in a sense, absolutely, the guru is the same as you or I. They are empty of an inherent nature of their own. They appear to us in the way they appear to us because of our karma, and they function in the way that they function because of our having created the causes and conditions for that. So what does that mean? It means also those things could potentially run out, right? So we hear all the time about the danger of, you take a guru and then you have or they say, it sounds so old fashioned, heresy against the guru, but what it means is I've made this decision that we're going to have this relationship. I made a decision that my Lama, my heart Lama, and other Lamas are qualified to lead me to enlightenment. That's, by the way, the only reason to have a guru, right? Not just to be a nicer person, or right, because we actually have other models for that. There's a thing that they're going to teach us. So we have to feel confident that they are qualified in that. So again, it's not having that great charismatic personality. I kind of shared with you a little bit that initially when I met Lama Zopa Rinpoche, for example, I wasn't incredibly enamored. Like I didn't feel like that love, like, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it, but it wasn't like a surface level attraction. Actually, there had been, I met Reba Rinpoche was my very first teacher, and I had that with him, very grandfatherly, kind, his physical appearance, everything about him, I found incredibly attractive. Lama Zopa was a little bit of a different story. There was I felt like there was a, just almost felt like a cult around him. Like he was sort of like the Elvis, I think I said, of Buddhism, and so out of the gate, that was like a little bit off-putting for me. And then, of course, my very first teaching, he shows up like, I don't remember how long, hours late, I would say, right? So I'm a new Buddhist, and I have the thought, how unprofessional. So, this is my mind, right? I'm thinking like, oh, this person's really unprofessional. Like all these people are here waiting, and he's X amount of time late, and then he just talked and kept us up all really late at night. And I remember like trying to send him psychic messages like, oh, if you can read my mind, please let us go. Please end now. I didn't want to be disrespectful. I had enough appreciation for the Dharma for that, but I wasn't loving it. And it was only later when I realized that my mind had been so affected by him, and not just the direct interactions, but I'll say to you, we are all here today because Lama Zopa Rinpoche had the vision, along with Lama Yeshe, to start and to continue FPMT for all of these years. It's quite amazing. He's brought so many amazing lamas to all of his centers across the globe, and he is tireless. And I think I heard the first time that I did have these teachings with him later, I think I heard that there were like some insects or something that he saw. And so he had to quickly rescue them and circumambulate them, right? Because like we have the precious human rebirth. We're all lined up to get a Buddhist teachings. Here he comes upon another creature that doesn't have that. And he's going to benefit them. Like if you spend time with him, what becomes obvious is he's not an ordinary person. Now, where someone's going to take that, initially for me, it was like not professional, but there was something clearly motivating him that wasn't ordinary. So I say that because, it may not be that your teacher initially appears to you as someone that you're just attracted to. It may, in my case, it was in spite of myself. I had this teacher, this being that undoubtedly is looking out for me. So it's that. And I would also say, maybe that's better in some ways, because not to be confused with just kind of, the like falling in love, the Dharma honeymoon, like, oh, I think so highly of this person. And then later on, I don't know, you get a teaching and you kind of lose some faith in them. So when it comes to losing faith and heresy in the teacher, how do we deal with that, right? So I think it's important going back, and I might be kind of speaking circularly, so please raise your hand or interject if I am. But remembering the emptiness of the teacher and the purpose that you have them, and remembering that like everything else in our world, how they are appearing to us is really depending upon us and us having created the causes and conditions. And so then if something were to look not correct, so what to do, right? Let's say your Lama tells you, to do something that appears to you to be wrong. This is a classic example. Like, so what do you do? Your Lama tells you to go out and steal. Here's another interesting thing. Two people can do the opposite thing, being guided by the correct motivation, and they will both have a good cause. Someone could do what would be outwardly maybe look objectively to be the correct thing and actually be creating negative causes. So one of the kind of classic examples is, somebody's walking along, and there's so many examples, but one of them that comes to my mind, someone is walking along and they see a statue of the Buddha and an image of the Buddha, and it's on a walkway and it's kind of muddy or whatever. And so they want to protect the statue from, getting dirty and soiled. So they remove their shoe and they put it on the statue to protect the statue. Well, we all know shoes are they're not clean things. Someone else comes along and they see that and they're like, oh my gosh, someone put a filthy shoe on top of the statue of the Buddha, and they remove the shoe. So they've done two different actions, but both of them are motivated by the same thing, motivated by this respect and appreciation. So they've done two opposite actions, but they've both incurred positive karma from that. So if your Lama were, for example, to say, do something that appears to you as wrong, you may be a person who has some kind of capacity to understand that it is a test, and you may feel that the way to show your devotion is to actually do that, being willing to take on, this is the other thing though, being willing to take on the possible negative karma of doing something that appears to be wrong, but doing it because you don't think you necessarily see the whole picture or understand the whole story. And so you're acting out of devotion and faith like that, but also understanding cause and effect and being willing to take on some kind of suffering for that. Or you could also be a person who says, you know what, this doesn't appear right, and I think it's a test, and it's a test of whether or not I will practice what my teacher has taught me rather than what my teacher is saying, right? But I think ultimately it is a test. I have to do what appears to me to be the right thing. That's the most important thing. You must do what appears to you to be the right thing. If following your guru truly appears to you to be the right thing, because you have listened to what they've taught, because you have meditated, so you're listening to teachings, you're contemplating them, you're meditating on them, and your logic is telling you something is the right thing to do. But if it isn't, then you have to honor how it appears to you and respectfully, not disrespecting the teacher, but like, I don't have the karma to see this as being correct. I don't have the karma to see my teacher as giving me instructions that are valuable. That doesn't mean my teacher isn't giving me valuable instructions, because maybe they're instructing me that I shouldn't be listening to them right now. So all of that's really complicated, but it means understanding ultimately, and again, I said this last week, the guru is the Dharmakaya. That is the absolute guru, the enlightened mind. It is not a person. It is not that guy. So it is embodied in, it is definitely embodied in a person. If you're lucky, multiple people. If you're really lucky, you would be a Buddha and you'd be surrounded by beings like that. How does that work, right? How does it work that, and again, it's related to emptiness. How does it work that fully enlightened being in their paradise body is just surrounded by other highly realized beings? How does that work? It's coming from them. So I'm going to stop because I did more talking than I want. But I hear you, and I would, as a as a Dharma friend, I would just say, you have to decide if it's something that you would like to have in this lifetime. And then if it is, then just start making those incremental steps to make that happen, because it's never too late. And the beauty is you may find that you come to a point where you realize the guru was always kind of manifesting and always teaching you. You can like retroactively kind of go back and say like, oh, wow, that was totally a teaching. I absolutely understand that that's part of the path for me. Okay, so I'm stopping and I'm waiting for someone.
At the risk of hogging this, let me ask you that: what do I expect to get from having a teacher when, if it was Lama Zopa, I'm probably not going to see him more than once a year, and I'll maybe once a year might be a lot. If it was Geshe-la, I could probably see him more, but even Geshe-la is, part-time, it's half the year basically in Santa Fe, and the other half of the year is in the Middle East, in the Far East, right? What should I expect to get? And all of these guys now in today's world, right? I get to, anytime I want to watch a teaching by Lama Yeshe or by Lama Zopa or by Geshe-la or by anybody else, I can log on and get their teaching.
Yeah.
So is that in today's world? So because I watched like 50 of his videos, I should consider him my teacher? Or should I be expecting something else besides kind of this this intellectual mentality that I have of he or she is going to teach me something, and it's going to come across and to some degree as words, but you also said it by example. Right. But then there are other ways they can teach as well.
Yeah. So a perfect question. And not to sound too weird, the guru, when you have that relationship, they are there. And I know I almost don't like to say it because it sounds so much like we already hear, right? Like personal relationship with Jesus Christ. We've heard, these are things that we've heard, right? And then my mind is like, well, what has he done for me? I'm sorry, that's so, I'm kind of tongue in cheek, but to me that feels, I don't know. That's not something I necessarily relate to, but it's interesting when I think about my teachers, I absolutely feel that way. So what do you expect to get out of it? Blessings, inspiration, and absolutely teachings, but the form that those teachings may take. So when you take on a guru, you're mentally, one of the things that you're doing is you are opening yourself up to them completely. So what that can look like is getting rid of, sometimes we have so many blocks, about like what is X, Y, or Z, and like actually attributing any understanding you have, any good qualities you have, any realization that you have to the guru. Like, so actually attributing it to them. So then the relationship is like, so, and I have actually absolutely had this. I'm not with my teacher. I'm actually in a room with another Dharma teacher, and that teacher is teaching me. And in that moment, that teacher is my guru. And I mean, that teacher is one and the same with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I don't mean I'm swapping out gurus. I mean, they are functioning for me as my guru, and this is who my guru is, right? So you don't have to be, but then when you have that feeling, so it's a little bit like somebody said to me once, we do exactly what we want to do. And so I understand there's limitations to things. I have them too, and my priorities aren't always where they need to be. But I would also say that when you're feeling like someone's your guru, then the desire to be around them or meet them or whatever kind of should be there, right? It's like saying you love someone, but I have no interest whatsoever in ever meeting them. It's right. You may not be able to meet them. That might just be a reality. But I would say, and I think some of it is just allowing ourselves to feel that. The other thing about a guru is, if a couple people, and I don't know if anyone on this call tonight has talked about doing Nundro, but I know some people have during the course of this time together have talked about doing Nundro practices. So, prostrations is one. So, I like to intellectualize things, and it's a good thing I'm a Galupa because that's what we do. That we have lists and we understand everything we do. But why are we doing prostrations? What is the purpose of a prostration? One thing when we talk about the qualities of a student and you talk about the bad qualities in the pot, nothing can come in if we're kind of too full of ourselves, right? So one is simply humbling ourselves. I had a teacher once who said, if we understood who and what the guru was, like what they can do, what they do for us, which is take us to enlightenment. If we understood what they were, we would, in an uncontrived way, plant ourselves on the floor. We would just involuntarily just be so humble that we would press ourselves against the ground. That is a heartfelt prostration. To even aspire to have that feeling about one person is an amazing thing. To want to be that open. But first you have to assume that I don't say that. You should understand how and why they would have the power that I'm saying they would have. Why is that? And that comes from your understanding, going to teachings, meditating on them, and for yourself, like truly developing your own understanding. So, somebody might preemptively decide that somebody's their guru and they're making prostrations and they don't really understand. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's probably not very sustainable, right? So the other thing is, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We can't jump over ourselves. If we're not there, we're not there. But I would say, and this is me talking, but I would say that if you ever made one heartfelt prostration in your life, that would probably be worth more than 100,000 where you're just going through the motions. Like if for one moment you had the appreciation of the Dharma, of the Dharmakaya, of all of that, to the extent that you felt just so incredibly humble. If you felt that once in your life, that is probably worth way more than 100,000 just going through the motions because some book tells you to do a prostration. So even just aspiring to feel that way, I want to find someone, I want to understand how all of this works. And again, it's understanding reality, right, from a Buddhist perspective. That's what's going to get you there. And I know that you're an intellectual minded person, so I hope that's a good answer for you, because I think it is about understanding, and our devotion, and again, this is just me saying this, but I think I always feel like baby steps in terms of we want to get our understanding to a certain level and then put our faith a little bit beyond what we're able to understand. But there should never be, a huge disparity between what we understand and where we're going with faith. I don't think, at least not for a Western mind, right? Because you'll make great, grand gestures and then later on regret it. And then if you understand 4 powers and, how to create a full karma and how to wreck a karma for purification, then you don't want to be regretting things, right? So better to do those things that are incremental but sincere. So I also thought I would talk a little bit about what, like a really practical thing that a person could do if they wanted to really have that connection with a holy being. One is don't get too hung up on who it is initially, but just recognize that the guru is probably manifesting for you in myriad ways right now that you're not recognizing. And so, pray to recognize that. I always encourage people to reach out to teachers that they respect. and expressing that, expressing gratitude. So a friend told me, and I've never seen it anywhere, and it's never been formally taught, but a friend taught me years ago, when you write a Lama letter, do it in the format of the 7-limb prayer, right? So, because we're all sort of like, what do I say? What do I say to the Lama, And I also say, write, compose a letter, pour your heart out, and then mail it. And you may get an answer and you may not. And again, but it has functioned perfectly. And the guru has received the letter, right? It's for you. You're working on your own mind as you're writing it, as you're mentally prostrating to these teachers, you're changing your own mind as you're offering, as you're asking them to teach. You're planting powerful seeds to have those things happen in your life. And don't be shy. And it's never arrogant. It's never arrogant to make ourselves humble. I think sometimes it's almost like a pride, like wanting to be respectful, which is, a good thing. But sometimes it gets in our way. It's like, no, make an ass. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but be willing to make a fool out of yourself for the right reasons. Really humbling, and it's good. All right, pausing again. And by the way, Michael, I appreciate you having some dialogue here. So if nobody else says anything, you've got something else, you're up. Yes, please, Aaron.
My question is, I've taken transmissions from people and I count them as my guru. Like I imagine them with certain practices, but I know I need the guru, like the main one the one I actually engage with. What practices then can I do in my state?
So, you can do guru yoga, right? And you can imagine that all of those other teachers are manifestations of the guru, and it might be one of them. But this is, again, like the guru can have these different faces. So what you're asking for is to have that closer relationship, to be more inspired, to have it feel more direct. It's interesting, though, when it feels more direct, sometimes it is coming from someone else, out of someone else's mouth, and it's the guru. It could be your spouse, whatever, they're saying something and maybe not even anything you like, but all of a sudden your mind is shifted. You remember something that you've been taught and you respond, differently, right? Because the guru is affecting you. So, it's not, it's so tricky because there's like heart guru, which sounds like one. And typically they say it is one, but it's recognizing that the one can come in many different forms too, right? So I think you're doing it right when you do the visualizations. Pray to see the holy face of the guru. Pray to see their holy face, to really know them, to know their mind, right? Pray to see them in everyone. That's how you know their face. Their face is the face of the Dharmakaya. It sounds so circular because it's beyond something that's just intellectual, right? Their face is an empty face. They're the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body, countless emanations, right? Countless. So you could, you could, and it's helpful sometimes to meditate on how, when we talk about becoming enlightened, you could think that, every other being on this planet, every other being you've ever encountered is already enlightened. And they are trying desperately to nudge you forward on the path, that every single thing, everything that has ever happened to you has been like them just trying to push you along. And then conversely, you can imagine like you're the only, you're the luckiest in the universe, and you're a guy who has this perfect human rebirth, and you're getting this, and oh my gosh, the whole entire universe is depending on you. So light a fire under your butt, right? Like those two different views are really helpful. And I don't know if that answered your question, but
It does, but I have another one. I have a lot of
Please.
anxiety of thinking about the guru, like in general. Like I'm afraid I'm gonna mess it up. Like this is my constant fear. Like there was a time period where I was like, is this person like count as a transmission? Like did just hearing somebody again a Dharma talk count as it? Things like that. What would you recommend?
well, hearing you say that, I think amazing, because it tells me that you have an understanding of what the guru is, right? Like you obviously understand they're heavy, they're important. Messing up is a mess up. I'm not gonna, that's what we're taught, right? Like for every moment of disrespect, eons in the hells. That's, I used to think some of this stuff was metaphoric, now and again, I don't expect anyone else, right? And we're all in different places, but now I think, no, there's beings who have seen directly or can remember and know that these are the repercussions. So I think it's actually healthy. And then moving forward anyway. I had so I've broken I've broken like a ton of vows over the course of my Buddhist practice. I took initiations, I made commitments to do things I didn't always do what I was supposed to be doing. And I remember at one point I was really, really concerned, and I went to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and I was, Rinpoche, I'm so sorry. I've broken my vows. I've broken my vows to you. I've failed you as my teacher. And he looked at me and he said, so have you decided I'm not your teacher? Your view of me is broken? And I said, no, of course not. And he said, then you haven't broken your samaya, which of course is very kind, because I know I broke samayas, but I didn't the ultimate break, right? Which is, so again, we can look at, how you fully form a karma. So one thing is you have to have to be happy about something, right? You can't have regret over it, right? To have the full meal deal. Just like when we're trying to purify negative things, regret acts against those seeds, right? It damages them. So even regretting, so you make a mistake and you regret it, actually you can purify too, right? So that's the good news. So I think you're in a perfect spot where you're understanding the gravity, the importance, the power that the guru has, the power that you give them. It becomes the power that they have, but you understand that. And I would say, move forward with an open heart. Definitely check them out. It's not a light thing. It's not the most popular one necessarily. It might not be anybody else's guru, but move forward, ask them and yeah, be afraid, but don't be afraid, if that makes any sense, proceed. And I think letters are wonderful, even if the letter says, because I understand the guru is the Dharmakaya and, is beyond anything that's trapped in your body, you have functioned as a guru for me. I don't know, but whatever your own words are, write letters, make prayers, those kinds of things. They're really powerful. And yeah, they're heavy. It's important. So then if you have a teacher and say something changes and for whatever reason. So I know people who have gotten involved with organizations maybe that don't like His Holiness, and then they develop a relationship with His Holiness, and then they're feeling like, I want to distance myself from that. Lama Zopa, if you go through Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives, there's, countless advice. Well, I don't know about countless. There's a lot of advice on that topic, though, how to like respectfully disengage, but you're not deciding that person isn't your guru, so that's an exercise, right? How to practice the true guru devotion. Maybe when externally it doesn't look like you're devoted to that person, right? Respecting, maintaining respect for how they've taught you. Anybody else? Well, we have like 18 minutes left. I would love if someone else, and if it's Michael or Aaron, you can ask again if no one else is speaking up. Okay. Then maybe what we'll do together is a meditation on this topic. Right? That's good for everyone. Nobody has any questions. So let's start with the Buddha. So thinking of the qualities of the Buddha, that limitless compassion and wisdom, and I am not living in the time of the Buddha. I'm not able to directly meet the Buddha. But these teachings have been passed along. Been practiced. Realizations have been developed in the minds of great saints and sages. And then there are beings right here in my time who have continued those teachings, who've spent their lives practicing. And they are one and the same with countless Buddhas, because they are the ones who are functioning for me to bring me these teachings. And imagine all of those countless Buddhas manifesting as one enlightened being, one incredibly holy being sitting right in front of you. Just imagine them being there, If you have a teacher, you can imagine it's them. And if you don't, then you can just know that it's them. You don't have to put the face. Just feel their warmth. Feel their love for you and for every living being. The purpose, their sole purpose, is to help every living being. So surely they want to help me. They want to share every realization they have. They want to see me progress on the path to realize bodhicitta, to realize emptiness, to free myself from all suffering. They want to see me become an instrument to serve every living being. Imagine that they're coming to the top of your head. And facing the same direction as you. Just imagine that from their heart, rays of light are pouring out, blessing you. Imagine that they are sharing all of the secrets of their holy body, speech, and mind with you. They want to pour all of that wisdom and compassion into you. And imagine them becoming smaller and smaller and smaller until they're like the size of a pea. And because they're made of light, they can just descend down through your crown, down along your, right in front of your spine, is a central channel. Imagine them coming down through your throat area, blessing your speech. And then imagine them resting at your heart. And light rays from their holy bodies are totally purifying every defilement of your own body. And their wisdom and compassion radiating through them into you. And then, as you are purified and filled with the light, imagine that light radiating from your heart out to countless beings everywhere. Your wish for them, the same as your holy guru wishes for you. And ask your guru, the guru at your heart, to stay with you always, to never give up on you, to continue to teach you, to always stay at your heart. Okay, now open your eyes and kind of come back into this space, and then hopefully still having that sense that they are with you. Anybody, I don't know, anyone have any questions, anything before we sort of close out this series and this 4-week session? I want to give you time if anyone wants to comment or anything. Otherwise, I'll just say thank you. Thank you. I hope that you all make connections with beings that inspire you. And yes, hi. Someone at the center, yes. Or maybe they didn't mean to raise their hand.
You'll have to unmute from the center.
Like so? Okay. I'm just figuring out the mic. Yeah, so my name's Scott, and first time I've ever been in a Buddhist center or anything like this. And so there's like so many questions. It's just, I am a great big bag of questions. I think what I would, if I just had one question right now, it would be, as a person who's always consider myself a self-directed learner, this path to enlightenment, as little as I understand it, it's a mighty long and complex road. And there's, it's especially at the very start, there's a whole lot that I'm sure I can learn in the absence of a teacher. Your discussion, thank you all so much for your questions and discussion on that subject. And so I have a lot to think about there. But so my question then is, as a person who's just curious about how to develop a personal practice to feel better connected to the, I'm not sure what the Buddhist term would be, but what I think of as the universal, the emptiness, the void, the underlying mystery of what it is that makes life in such ways. How do you get started? What are some good tips or techniques for, in the absence of a teacher, how do you begin to learn?
So, and you're doing it. So first of all, you want to be, right? So anything we want to achieve, we have to first want, right? It really sounds so simple, but it is the first step. So having that desire and then taking action that appears to lead you in that direction. Those are powerful karmic seeds. Not only are they we tend to think this outward, world, we misconnect the dots sometimes karmically, but actually in this case, what you're doing is exactly, that is how you start. And then connecting with other people on a spiritual path. And because it's your first time, and I'm sorry, I usually do say it's really important. Nothing on this path is something that you have to swallow. First time you hear it, what I would say and what is recommended is, if something is a little bit tough to swallow initially, but everything else sounds good and makes sense, maybe just sort of table a topic for the future, keep an open mind, keep investigating. Classes like this are great because, it's normal people coming together and being able to like have a discussion. Sometimes, like, I don't know if you went to see the Dalai Lama, it might feel a little different. You might feel, more timid to ask questions, but you're doing it, I would say. And, one thing I said last week, and I'll just mention again, I totally get the self-directed thing. But just a reminder that there truly is nothing that we've taught ourselves, even as we're, if I'm whatever it is that I'm learning, I'm reading what someone else did, or I'm watching what they did as an example. So just kind of, recognizing that the connection to a lineage can be so helpful in anything that we want to learn. So certainly, if you want to be whatever a person's trade is, or anything else, going and trying to find people who know more than us is important. And so just like that, I hope that's helpful. And welcome, like really welcome.
Thank you.
I hope this particular topic, who knows, it's such potluck. Like you walk into a Dharma center for the first time and either something happens that, well, I guess there's a lot of things. It's not just a either or, but, sometimes it's so great. It resonates and it's like, this is wonderful. And another time it's like, that didn't really resonate with me. So I would just say, keep coming or listening and keep seeking, and you'll find the path that really connects you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's dedicate. So we do this thing after we've spent this time together. So we start with, an intention. And then you can think, that what we've done together is like an investment. Like, so we've created something, we've created some karma together. And now we want to make sure that goes towards what our hearts really want, right? So what we want is to realize the spiritual path. When we let our imaginations and optimism run away with us, we want to help every living being. We want to be free from suffering ourselves. We want to share that with every living being. Happiness, the causes of happiness, liberating them from suffering and the causes of suffering. So we've spent time, mental energy together here. May that time ripen as enlightenment for ourselves and all other beings. And may everyone who supports the path in its myriad manifestations, may every being who helps on the path and all of our teachers have long and healthy lives, and may they all succeed in their highest wishes. And thank you again so very, very, very much. Anyone who ever wants to ask another question or stay connected, my email is super simple. It's just my name @gmail.com. If you were shy and have a question or anything, feel free. And thank you so very much. And thank you to the center for giving me this opportunity. And I hate to say goodbye. So hopefully it's not goodbye forever. countless lifetimes we have. So I'm sure we'll meet again.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful
you.
night. Appreciate
Thank
your
you, Bonnie,
efforts
for the great
so much.
discussions.